All right, welcome. A few days ago, I did my NHL season predictions for the standings. Why not go all the way? It's just fun. We're just having a good time here. Um, Even when we know the seedings, I'm usually horribly wrong. So this is just for fun. Take it with a grain of salt. Don't take it too seriously because I'm not, and I didn't really. I did look up some matchups, some stats, kind of see how teams fare against each other, and so on. But there's still a lot of hockey left to play, and major moves are yet to be made at, say, the trade deadline. So we'll see what happens. Players could get injured. We'll see what happens. Um, Based on where I have teams finishing, kind of determine the matchups. So we'll start, I guess, in the Metro. We got the Canes against the Penguins in the first round. I have the Canes winning that. Penguins, concerning, it might be one of their last years really being competitive. Um, at least, they should be a wild card team this year. They should. They're a fringe wild card team at the moment. They kind of have been playing that way all year. They'll pretty much have the same team back next year. There'll be some depth guys that'll come in and out. Will Danton Heinen stay? Will he go? Things like that. Excuse me. But I think the Canes overall are a better built team. And I think they'll get out of that first round no problem. Rangers, Capitals. This could be really interesting. Obviously, there's a history there. The Capitals are a pretty solid team. We know Darcy Kemper is a great goalie. He has a Stanley Cup under his belt now. He really showed up for certain games in the playoffs last year, and not so much in others. So we'll see what we get from Darcy Kemper, but nonetheless, the defense has been evolving and getting better throughout the season. We'll see. If everyone stays healthy, I think it could be one of those series that goes to 7 games. But I have the Rangers pulling that out. I think they're a better overall team. It is what it is. Bruins, Devils. I have the Bruins winning. Bruins haven't lost to the Devils yet this season. I think they played 3 games so far. 2 away and 1 at home, and they've won all 3 of them. Convincingly, too. The Devils are a good team. It's exciting. They've made the playoffs this year. I'm someone who did not have them in the playoff race at all for my preseason predictions. So just being in the playoffs is a step in the right direction. Even if they lose in the first round, it's big for that fan base. It's been a while. Leafs Lightning matchup, same matchup from last year. I still have the Lightning winning in 7 again. Lightning are tough. They're a tough team to beat. They have a physical. They can play physical, and the Leafs tend to lack that. And so the Bruins at times. They have Foligno, they have Trent Frederick. So we'll get into the next round later. On the Western side, we got the Jets versus the Avalanche. I think the Avs are going to pull out and win over the Jets. Yes, the Avalanche are really winning with McKinnon back. Yes, their goaltending is very hit or miss on any given night between their 2 goaltenders. Gorgiev seems like the starter, but we don't really know if there's a definitive starter there that it's an automatic, like, this guy has to start in the playoffs. There's question with the Avalanche. I'm not too concerned if they get healthy, and that's a big if, because they haven't been, and we're halfway through the season, and they're not in the playoff race at all. They're not in a wild card position yet. We'll see. I do like Connor Hellebuck. I do like the Jets defense. I think the Avs are going to match them goal for goal, but I think the Jets aren't. The Jets offense might suffer a bit. Some games they look sloppy. Some games they don't look together. The Avalanche, the team that they defend pretty well. I'm taking the Avalanche again, assuming they're healthy, assuming they're back to their normal form and clicking on all cylinders. Next up, Stars Wild. Again, I like the Wild. I watch every Wild game. I think the Stars are a better team, top to bottom. It is what it is. I'm sorry for Minnesota fans. Another first round exit is not pleasant, but it is what it is. I think you got Ottinger and net who could just steal you games, multiple games. He played well in the playoffs last year. We'll see if he can replicate that this year. Their defense is good. Their offense is scoring at a great clip. They got a bunch of young guys mixed with some veteran players. Sagan and Ben are putting the puck in the net somewhat this year. They're having bounce back years. It's not living up to either of their contracts. Not even close to doing that, but nonetheless, bounce back years. So it's exciting. I think Stars top to bottom should pull out a victory over the Wild, maybe in 5 or 6 games. I don't see a sweep happening because the Wild are still a good team, but I think the Stars are probably a little better at this point. Knights and Flames. Yeah, I went with the Knights because they've been the better team. We haven't seen a whole lot of success for the Flames this year. There is a chance the Flames start clicking. Huberdeau starts producing at a rate that he has produced at for a few years now. Uyghur seems to be figuring it out on the blue line. The team seems to be working better together, and they're progressing in the right direction. So who knows? They could finish the season as one of the hotter teams in the NHL and knock off the Knights in the first round. But I think overall the Knights are just a better team. They're better built. And Bruce Cassidy's system matches up well against Daryl Sutter's system in Calgary. So I have the Knights winning that. Last up, Kraken hosting the Kings. Now, I'm a big Kraken fan. I watch a lot of Kraken games. I'm high on the Kings this year, apparently. The Kraken are good, but I think they're going to have an issue scoring goals against the Kings. And the Kings' goaltending isn't great. Their goaltender is Phoenix Copley right now. They have, $10 million tied up in Quick and Peterson, Cal Peterson. And they have their third-string goalie who is taking over the starting job. So that's definitely a massive concern, especially for me. But nonetheless, I think the Kings defend pretty well. So do the Kraken. There's also questions in net for the Kraken as well, but I think it's going to come down to the offense. I think the Kings have a much more lethal offense than the Kraken. So for that, I have the Kings beating out the Kraken. Kraken look good, though. It's exciting that they're in the playoffs in their second year. That's already a huge accomplishment. They have a young base. They'll keep growing, kind of like the Devils. They'll keep getting better as the years progress. So, they'll probably go further next year, assuming this is right, which it probably isn't. Anyway, round 2. Hurricanes, Rangers. I got the Rangers pulling this out. It's the same matchup from last year in the playoffs. There's something about the Hurricanes in the playoffs. They show up for some games and they don't show up for other games. And in close games, it can go either way. So I have this being a competitive matchup, but I think the Rangers, they've proved they can do it in the past. And I still have a lot of concerns about the playoff Hurricanes. It really comes down to that. Playoff history against the Hurricanes. Even when the Hurricanes played the Bruins last year, the Bruins were anemic offensively last year. They could not score. But even so, the Hurricanes kind of played down to their level. It was, there were questions after the Bruins-Hurricane series going into the Rangers series last year. Those questions are still there for me. They still, they're going through kind of a slump right now. They look a little vulnerable. I'm sure they'll get that figured out before the playoffs start. They're a very good team top to bottom. We also don't know who the goalie is going to be in the playoffs. Kochetkov. People seem to start, teams are starting to figure out where to shoot on him. So questions, Rangers, that offense, that, the defense is young, but it defends well. So I don't have too many concerns with the New York Rangers. Plus you got Igor in net, and Igor is just an animal. Yes, he's not putting up the stats he had last year, but those were some godly stats he had last year. He's still among the best of the best this year. You just don't hear about it. He's having a great season. Bruins, Lightning. I think the Lightning are going to take the Bruins out in the second round. The Lightning match up well against the Bruins. It's just one of those things. The Bruins are rolling. How far will they go in the playoffs? I think a lot of people are picking them to be Stanley Cup finalists. they've looked invulnerable the past few weeks. They've won games they should have won. They've won close games. They've lost in overtime after giving up leads several times in the past, was it 15 games or so? And they lost like 4 in overtime, and they get shut out last night to the Kraken. So there's also that midseason slump type thing, but they were definitely overachieving to start the season out, and they're kind of in a lull right now. And Tampa's just cruising. They're Tampa. They're going to have Vasilevsky. You're going to have guys like Hedman and Sergachev on that blue line. You got guys like Hagel, and Nick Paul's producing at a decent clip. Kucherov is like, 21 points over a point per game or something. Stamkos, looking at like a 38 goal season, 34 goal season, whatever, mid-30s season for goals. They're a good team, and they should not be slept on. Plus, they can play the physical game with Boston. Tampa, not an overly physical team, but they have physical pieces. And I don't think Boston, at least throughout this year, hasn't shown that they're willing to match physical play. They'd rather play a skill-based game. But Tampa's good at kind of forcing you into that physical game. I had Lightning pulling that one out. That one hurts because I'm a Bruins fan. It hurts a lot. Lightning, I don't know. I don't know how many games it goes. I don't even want to make that prediction right now. I think we need to see how the rest of the season pans out. But yeah, for now. And then Rangers Lightning. Got to do the other conference next because we're still in round 2. Avalanche Stars. I have the Stars being the Avalanche. The Avalanche, they're a good team. Maybe they're a little burnt out. Maybe I don't know. I don't know what's going on. There's questions I have with the Avalanche that we have not seen answers to throughout the year. Big one for me is still goaltending. Come at me. I know. Gorgiev's looked good. Francouz's looked good. But who's the starter? And there are games, and they're not too uncommon, where both goaltenders don't look great. They don't. They're not making saves they should. Questions for the playoffs. Francouz has a fairly good track record in the playoffs in net, whereas Gorgiev, I don't even know if he's played a playoff game yet. I think the Stars are going to come out full force. This is a revenge game. I think I think the Stars are going to pull this one out and do it convincingly. I'm taking like the Stars in 5. Maybe 4. Maybe the Avalanche get swept. I'm pretty confident that the Stars would beat the Avalanche at this point in the season, should the playoffs start, tomorrow. And they play each other. Knights Kings. Kings have had the Knights number all year. The Kings play the Knights so well. I have no idea what it is. The Knights can't score against the Kings. Couldn't tell you what that's about. But the Kings are also putting up goals against the Knights. I don't know. I'm taking the Kings. I think that addition of Fiala, I think some of the young guys are going to play a key part in the success over the Knights. I'm not too worried about the Knights goaltending. I know you got Aiden Hill and Logan Thompson, and you got a rookie and you got Aiden Hill. So we'll see, but I'm not too worried about that because of the system that Bruce Cassidy plays. It's a weird system. It's defensive minded, but the defensive guys have to jump into the zone. The guys on offense need to cover and play defense, but that needs to happen a lot more frequently than other teams. Use your offense for defense and use your defense for offense. That's kind of Bruce Cassidy. But at the same time, Cassidy's mentality is team defense is important and needs to be prioritized. So that's a positive. I think that'll help the goalies quite a bit, and I think it has so far. You see a goaltender in a good defensive system, their numbers are a lot better than goaltenders who aren't in a good defensive system. It just is what it is. So I think the defense is going to help out the Knights quite a bit with their goaltending. I'm not too concerned about that, but I do have the Kings winning that. I don't even know how many games. Maybe 6. I don't think that goes 7 games. I also don't think the Knights get swept by the Kings. I think the Knights are still a good team. They're a good team. All right, round 3, the final 4. Rangers Lightning, same matchup from last year again. A lot of this is turning out to be similar to last year. I did not do that on purpose, I promise. That's just kind of going off of this year's stats. I have the Rangers prevailing over the Lightning. The Rangers play the Lightning really well. The Rangers can play a speed-based game, which the Lightning not so much. They're typically more of a reserve team. They're more strategic offensively than the Rangers. Um, but the Rangers also have guys that can get gritty goals, like Kreider and so on. Um, so I'm liking the Rangers. I think they're going to beat the Lightning this year, unlike last year. Um, you know, assuming Shesterkin plays well, assuming the defense plays up to their capabilities, they're capable and they've shown throughout this year that they can play solid defense. Again, it's not easy for a bunch of young defensemen to play solid defensive hockey. It's just that's something that is acquired with experience, and there's not a whole lot of experience. But you got young guys like Adam Fox and Keandre Miller who they're very good defensively, especially considering their age. I'm not too worried about that. You got Igor and Net. You got a few lines that can start rolling for New York. Um, New York doesn't really get too caught up in that physical game. They can play that skill-based game from end to end, which can kind of offset or throw off, Tampa's game a little bit. Um, both teams are very well coached. I know Gallant gets a lot of hate in New York. I like his coaching style. I think he's been a very good coach, especially for that team and with a lot of those players and the younger guys. I know he gets some hate for that too because of the development of his younger guys, But so you can look at like Kako and Lafreniere and like, oh, they're not producing at a rate we expect them to produce. But then you look at guys like Fox and Keandre Miller, and they're essentially exceeding expectations that were placed when they first made the roster, in smashing those expectations. So I don't know, you know, I'm staying out of that argument, but I like Gallant overall. I think he's done a nice job with that team. Yes, there are concerns. Yes, the kids need to show up in the playoffs. You need Lafreniere to put the puck in the net. You need Hedel and Kako to pass right, defend, and put the puck in the net. You need them to play well because they're key pieces to your team. It's 25% of your offense is those three guys right there. So you still need that, and that showed up last year. And I think if the Rangers don't make it as far this year as they did last year, it's because that those three guys didn't necessarily show up like they did last year in the playoffs. And they played well in the playoffs last year. They were a great line. They were mostly on a line together. I think they were on a line together all but I think one game in total, like 2 half games or something. I don't know. Pretty much the whole playoffs last year. That was one line. So, and they played well. That needs to be replicated for the Rangers to get to the Stanley Cup. Stars over Kings. I think this is probably going to be a sweep. Again, concerns with the Kings goaltending. The Pacific is just not overly impressive. There's a lot of goaltending issues in the Pacific. There's a lot of teams that are struggling to score, or struggling to defend, or and what is it? 6 of the 8 teams have like a team goaltending average below 900 or team save percentage below 900, which is it's not great. It isn't. Don't know what to tell you. No other division is like that. Not even close. So I think the Kings, they come out of it, but they're severely undermatched to almost any of these teams. I think the Wild would be a good matchup, but I have the Wild losing in the first round. I think the Stars sweep the Kings. I think the Stars light up the Kings goaltenders. As decent as the Kings defense is, I don't think it's good enough to stop guys like Robertson and Rope Hintz from putting the puck in the net on a regular basis. Stanley Cup, though, if it comes down to these two teams, it's going to be a blast to watch. I don't care who you're rooting for. This is going to be a fun Stanley Cup. My only negative feedback for the Stanley Cup final is the lack of physicality. I like some grit. I like some physicality. I like those, aggressive emotions and that I like the flow of emotions in the Stanley Cup. I think that's a lot of fun to watch, and you usually get that when two teams are more physical. Um, I think we're gonna get more of a skill-based Stanley Cup Finals. I have the Stars beating the Rangers in six. Um, I don't like the Stars at all. I root against them every night. This dates back to me growing up as a Bruins fan with um, you got the North Stars and you got the Dallas Stars, and every game was just a penalty minute fest. You go back to the Stars Bruins regular season game of like 2008 or 2009. I think it's 2008. You got Steve Ott and Sean Avery over in Dallas, and hitting Tim Thomas in the head with the stick and all sorts of garbage. It was, you got Marty Turco of the Dallas Stars interfering with players and like getting penalties called on him, and it was just a different era. Obviously, it's not like that anymore. So I don't hate the Stars, but I just don't root for them. I don't care for them. If they lose, that's fine. But I have them winning the Stanley Cup this year. They're a great team, top to bottom. There's no question about that. I think the offensive firepower is slightly more than that of the Rangers, and the Rangers are good They're a very good offensive team, but the Stars can match their speed and their skill base, their offensive skill base. The Stars, good defensive team. The Rangers, good defensive team. The Rangers defensively are a little younger. That might be a concern. Again, I'm not too concerned about that. Maybe with playoff experience, I don't know. We'll just put that aside. Goaltending should be pretty good. You got Shesterkin versus Ottinger. Assuming they're both healthy, assuming they both still have the starting jobs, which they probably should because they've been outstanding halfway through the season already. I think it's going to come down to offense and a speed game. I think the Stars are going to win that in six. I don't see this going seven. I don't see it being a sweep. 6 games sounds about right. I'd be surprised if it went 5 games and one team only won 1 game. I think it'll be a 3-2 series, and then the Stars are going to win that game 6 and win it 4-2. So there you go. Lots of fun. Don't take it seriously because all of this is probably going to be wrong. All of the seedings, even the teams that are here may not actually end up in the playoffs. I'm not doing this with any bias or whatever either. Again, like there's some teams I don't like up here that I have beating. My team. Like I don't like the Lightning at all. I have them beating my Bruins in the second round in a historic Bruins season. It hurts my soul, but it's my pick. So this was fun. My next video, I'm going to look at the Bruins, kind of how their seasons progressed, or I might do what next year might look like. The Bruins are in a really weird scenario, especially if they win the Stanley Cup. There's a good chance they may not make the playoffs next year. We'll get into that and discuss alternative routes. Really early look, but this is when you got to start planning ahead for general managers. This is the time to start thinking about it, especially with the trade deadline looming. And I don't know, is it 2 months? About 2 months away? Are you getting rentals? Are you selling your future to win now? Are you getting a guy at the deadline who's going to extend the next few years? That'll all be discussion for later. But overall, I'm high on the Rangers. I'm high on the Stars, apparently. I'm pretty high on the Jets. I'm high on the Kraken. I guess I'm high on the Kings. The Kings are. I think it's just an unfortunate matchup for the Kraken in the first round. I think if it's Kraken Knights, I might. I don't know. I might take the Kraken. That might be about it. I am high on the Caps right now. The Capitals are playing great hockey. I think this is going to be a tough series for the Rangers. It wouldn't be too much of a surprise if the Rangers end up losing to the Capitals. That's how well the Capitals are playing, and that's how well they can play. But I think the Rangers are a better team from top to bottom and have a little more skill. But nonetheless, it's going to be some some interesting playoffs this year. I think playoffs should be fun to watch this year. There were certain series last year we knew it was just, why watch this? This is going to be a sweep, and then it ended up being a sweep, and every game was a blowout type thing. So I think this year will be a lot more entertaining. I think there'll be closer matchups this year. If I had to pick a sweep from the first round, probably the Avalanche over the Jets. And I have the Avalanche losing in the next round, and I don't have that going 7 games. I just don't. I think that's going to be 6 games too. And maybe the Devils getting swept by the Bruins. Bruins will be at home. Bruins are 3-0 against the Devils this year. 2 of those wins are away. I believe all 3 are in regulation. Don't quote me on that, but I'm like 95% sure all 3 of the Bruins wins are in regulation. But other than that, I think you got some good matchups here. So, all right. Thanks for watching. Again, just for fun. Let me know who you got finishing, where, what your bracket might look like, who you have winning the Stanley Cup. Love to hear it. All right. Until next time, thank you guys for watching. Take care, all right?